Imagine waking up to the smell of pine, a sky full of stars instead of smog, and a main street where the barista actually remembers your name. And no, this is not Aspen, Jackson, or Park City. Today, we're diving into 12 little-known mountain towns in America you've probably never visited. Places that feel like they were built for people who are sick of $18 pancakes, tourist traps, and overcrowded Instagram towns. Quick heads up. These towns are for people who love quiet, real communities instead of resort machines. Jaw-dropping views, real winters, and small-town quirks. The idea of maybe, just maybe, disappearing into the mountains one day. And as you're watching, keep track. Which one would you actually move to? And which one would drive you crazy in a week? 1. Bryson City, North Carolina. Smokies without the circus. If Gatlinburg is the theme park version of the Smokies, Bryson City is the secret entrance only locals whisper about. It sits on the North Carolina side of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, but somehow avoids the insane tourist flood. Step out of town and you're instantly in forests, waterfalls, and ridgelines instead of neon signs and Ripley's museums. Imagine a town where your downtown traffic is waiting for a black bear to cross the road, instead of sitting in a 30-minute backup behind a minivan with Florida plates. 2. Highlands, North Carolina. Old money views, small town pace. Drive a couple hours south and you hit Highlands tucked in the Nantahala National Forest, where it feels like someone froze time in the best way possible. The town sits high in the mountains, ringed by waterfalls, cliffside overlooks, and dense forest. Main Street feels like a movie set. Old buildings, boutique shops, and restaurants that somehow pull off tiny town but big flavor. It's the kind of place where you could be hiking past a waterfall at 10 a.m. and eating a white tablecloth dinner at 7 p.m. without ever leaving town limits. It's popular with people escaping Atlanta and the Southeast heat, but it's still miles away from the chaos of major resort crowds. 3. Mentone, Alabama. A mountain town you don't expect. When you think mountain town, you probably don't think Alabama. But Mentone is perched on Lookout Mountain, with views that feel way more Colorado than Deep South. It's about 2 hours from Chattanooga, Atlanta, and Birmingham, yet still feels like a hidden mountaintop village. The town sits on a ridge with lookouts over valleys, forests, and old campgrounds that feel frozen in the 1960s. Picture driving through humid southern flatlands. Then suddenly you're in a cool, breezy mountaintop town where the local cafe looks like it was built out of a summer camp mess hall. And that's a compliment. Life here is simple. Artisan shops, cabins, church signs, and the kind of community where everybody absolutely knows everybody. 4. Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Cliffside village in the clouds. Blowing Rock sits more than 3,500 feet above sea level on Grandfather Mountain, hanging over the Blue Ridge like a balcony. It's named after a famous rock formation that juts out over Johns River Gorge, with views that look like a painting. The town itself mixes art galleries, local wineries, and mountain cabins with hardcore hiking trails and scenic drives. This is the kind of town where your walk to get coffee casually includes a 1,000-foot drop view over a gorge if you make one wrong turn down a side street. It's not unknown, but it's still overshadowed by bigger names, which means fewer crowds, but all the mountain town perks. 5. Alpine, Texas, the desert mountain crossover. You didn't see coming. Alpine sits in far west Texas, surrounded by the Davis and Glass Mountains and the high Chihuahuan Desert. You're in a legit mountain town, but the landscape feels like a Western movie. Wide skies, dry air, and distant ridgelines. It's a gateway to Big Bend National Park, one of the most remote and rugged parks in the entire country. If you've ever daydreamed about a life where your daily commute is a long, empty highway with mountains on one side and desert on the other, Alpine is basically your screensaver come to life. Housing has been creeping up, but it's still not Aspen money. You're more likely to meet park rangers and grad students than hedge fund managers. 6. Lead, South Dakota, Wild West in the Black Hills. Next up, a town that feels like the set of a Western. But people still live there, have Wi-Fi, and complain about property taxes. Leeds sits in the Black Hills, right next to far more touristy Deadwood. It grew around one of the largest gold mines in the country, so the whole place has that rugged, old mining town vibe. Instead of crowded casinos, you get steep streets, old wooden buildings, and quick access to Black Hills trails and forests. Picture waking up in a creaky old house from the 1900s, stepping onto your porch and seeing fog rolling through pine-covered hills where people once hunted for gold and now just hunt for cell service. Lead flies under the radar because Deadwood hogs the spotlight, which is exactly why it feels more real and less themed. 7. Minturn, Colorado, hidden between giants. You know Vail, you might know Beaver Creek, but most people drive right past Minturn without realizing there's a quiet little town just off the highway that locals treat like a sanity escape. It has just over 1,000 residents and sits in the Rockies less than 10 minutes from Vail, but feels decades away in attitude. No endless lift lines, no flashy luxury branding, just small-town shops, trailheads, and the river running through. Imagine skiing in Vail during the day, then escaping back to Minturn at night, where you can actually find a parking spot and a bar stool without selling a kidney. Minturn doesn't have the big-name resort energy, which is exactly why some people love it. It's a base camp, not a brand. 8. Salida, Colorado. Mountains, river, and actual year-round life. In the heart of the Rockies, Salida is surrounded by peaks, the Sawatch Range, Monarch Mountain, and the Arkansas River running right by town. It sits in a county that has more than a dozen 14,000-foot peaks, which means hiking, mountain biking, and climbing are basically unavoidable. The downtown is lined with brick buildings, art murals, and gear shops, making it feel like a mix of old railroad town and modern outdoor hub. This is the kind of place where your coworker might literally say, "Sorry, I'll email you later. We're trying to beat a thunderstorm off the ridge." Salida has gotten more attention recently, but it's still overshadowed by Breckenridge and Aspen, which keeps it relatively grounded, at least for now. 9. Crested Butte, Colorado. The last great ski town that isn't Aspen. Crested Butte calls itself the last great Colorado ski town. And it's not wrong. It started as a mining town in the 1880s, and now it's famous for wildflowers, steep ski runs, and the fact that it hasn't totally sold its soul to high-end luxury. Nicknamed the wildflower capital of Colorado, it explodes with color in summer. In winter, the mountain is serious. Expert runs, real snow, and way fewer crowds than the big-name resorts. Picture a town where your neighbor has both a snowplow and a mountain bike on the same truck and uses both regularly. Yes, prices have climbed, but it still feels more like a slightly chaotic, colorful Old West town than a polished ski brochure. 10. Bryson City's cousin. Vibes, highlands, and friends of the Southeast. Zooming out for a second, the Southeast is quietly loaded with small mountain towns that never make the top 10 ski resorts lists, but absolutely belong in any "could I live there" fantasy. Think of this cluster of towns, Bryson City, Highlands, Mentone, Fort Payne, as a hidden network. Rustic cabins, foggy mornings, roadside produce stands, and trailheads right off two-lane roads. If you like the idea of mountains, but also want sweet tea, old diners, and a slightly slower southern pace of life, these towns beat the crowded resorts out west for a lot of people. They fly under the radar because they're not built around huge ski resorts. They're built around forests, rivers, and communities that existed long before Instagram. 11. The quiet ones. Small, overlooked, and perfectly boring. Some of the best mountain towns don't even try to be destinations. They just exist. Places like tiny Black Hills towns, little hamlets in the Appalachians, or small Rockies communities where the only attraction is a trail sign and a gas station. Crime is usually low, not because of fancy security, but because everyone either knows you or knows who you're related to. The economy can be fragile. Tourism in summer, seasonal work, small businesses hanging on, making these places feel both cozy and precarious at the same time. These are the kinds of towns where a new coffee shop opening is actual front-page news, and a fresh pothole gets talked about for weeks. They're not glossy, and that's the point. If you're looking for authenticity, it often lives in the places that don't even have a marketing budget. 12. So, could you actually live in one of these? Here's the twist. These towns are gorgeous, but they come with trade-offs. Winters can be rough, heavy snow, icy roads, and long, dark evenings. Jobs might be limited, housing can be weirdly expensive, and the nearest big box store might be an hour away. You don't move to these places for convenience. You move there to trade Target runs and rush hour for starry skies and the sound of wind in the trees. So ask yourself, would you rather have a 10-minute commute in a city or a 45-minute snowy drive along a mountain road where the traffic jam is a herd of elk? Now I want to know, which of these little-known mountain towns just jumped to the top of your someday list, and which one feels like a beautiful nightmare you'd only visit, never live in? Drop the name of the town you'd pick in the comments and tell me why. Views, peace and quiet, low crime, or just an excuse to wear flannel year-round? If you enjoyed exploring these hidden corners of the mountains, hit like, share this video with someone who keeps threatening to move off the grid, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the places most people never bother to look up on a map. And hey, before you go back to your normal life, ask yourself one last thing. If you had the chance to disappear into just one of these towns for a year, would you actually do it?